Alrighty, we're under criminal law. It is week 3 and we're looking at murder. So if you remember last week we looked at criminal responsibility. We'll be borrowing a lot of these elements from here in our descriptions. So just try and remember especially the mens rea elements, which is intention, recklessness, and negligence. No, really negligence. Hold on, that doesn't work. Intention, recklessness, and we'll skip ahead a little bit. Grievous bodily harm. That's the other one. But yeah, so these subjective ones, intention and recklessness. Just remember those for a bit later. I'll reference this more as well. So, murder sits under the Crimes Act because it is a crime. Fun fact. Under Section 18, it says murder shall be taken to have been committed where the act of the accused or thing by him or her omitted to be done. So it's either an action or omission. Caused the death charged, was done or omitted with reckless indifference to human life, or with intent to kill, or inflict grievous bodily harm upon some person. So it's results based. So if you do anything that kills someone else, then you have committed a homicide, and then if it meets certain conditions, then it counts as murder. But it's only murder if somebody's died. Every other punishable offence where you have killed someone is manslaughter. So there's a bit more to this clause, but we didn't really have to learn this, is that if you kill someone accidentally or for any reason after having committed a serious crime, then you can still be done for murder, even if murder wasn't your intention or anything like that. So what we're looking for, the key sentence is, murder is any voluntary act or omission which caused the death of a human being. Did I not write this down? Let me write this down. This is important. So, any voluntary act or omission which caused the death of a human being. Alright, so any voluntary act, actus reus, we kind of looked at this over here. So any positive act, so if I pull a gun on someone and shoot them and kill them, that's a positive act. Omission, if you remember from last week, we had 4 different scenarios in which omission could arise. So if I do any of these on purpose, or if I just omit and then somebody dies, then that's murder. And we see that sort of down here. Yeah, we see it in this case, but I'll explain that later. So, voluntary act or omission, which caused. Now, causation is probably, this is where the majority of our content was focused on. One thing that we had to look at was that but-for logic is generally not good. So, the example that my lecturer gave was, if I bought you a plane ticket, then you hopped on the plane, and then the plane crashed and you died, the argument could be made but for Elijah buying you the ticket, he would still be alive. And the reason why that doesn't work is because I can't foresee everything. So yeah, the events of death must be reasonably foreseeable. So if I couldn't foresee that the plane would die, then the chain of logic or the train of causation breaks. Burns v. the Queen is an example of this, where a drug dealer sold drugs to a drug user. The drug user OD'd and died. And so the question is it the drug dealer's fault? Well, no, because he could not foresee that the ODer would overdose. Novus actus intervenus, I don't know how you say that. It's basically like when the chain of logic breaks, right? Or when you can no longer, when your actions no longer affect the outcome of the death. And so when that breaks, then causation is no longer applicable. That's right. One thing I forgot to mention is each of these voluntary act or omission which caused the death of a human being must be proven beyond reasonable doubt. Each 4 of those. So we got that. So causation. One case that we look at, Swan v. the Queen. My lecturer said he didn't really agree with this. I guess I kind of don't really either. It doesn't really make too much sense. But Swan is, I think, the perpetrator in this instance. Broke into this old guy's house and beat him. And then the guy's quality of life significantly dropped. He was hospitalized, needed assistance for everything. And then 5 months later, he tripped, got a hip injury, and he said, "You know what? Don't try and fix me. I'm good the way I am." And then he ended up dying because of that injury. And then the original attackers, so the guys that broke in and attacked him, they were guilty of murder. Because the way the court saw it was that the causation was, they broke in, and then the guy, got injured, and then he was hospitalized, and then he died. I don't really like the chain of logic there, but it's, I am not the courts, so that's not my decision to make. Avi Blowy, I think that's how you pronounce it, that shows the eggshell skull rule. So, an attacker hit a Jehovah's Witness. Now, Jehovah's Witnesses, on the grounds of their faith, they don't take blood transfusions. And so the JW ended up bleeding out and dying. And the attacker was accused of murder because unexpected frailty is no defense. This is the eggshell skull rule. So if you assume, if you didn't know someone's got an eggshell skull and you punched them in the face and then their head cracked and they died, you not knowing is not a defense because it was your intent to hurt them, which killed them. Another good case for causation. I'll actually bring this one up because this makes a bit more sense. Actually, no, I'll just bring this down because this makes less sense. R.V. Smith, a bunch of a bunch of soldiers were in a soldier camp. A fight broke out. Someone got stabbed with a bayonet. Right, so we've got the stabber and we've got the victim. The victim was rushed over to the medical center, put on a stretcher, but then on the way they kept, the people that were moving the victim, they kept dropping him, right, which made the injuries even worse. They went to the medical center, the medical section of the camp, and they were ill-equipped and the guy bled out and died. And then the original stabber, he was convicted of murder, even though it was probably the dropping that could have killed him, and even though he probably could have been saved if there was better medical equipment, because the stabbing was a sufficiently substantial operating cause of death, or a substantial or significant cause of death. The guy was convicted of murder. The way my lecturer described it, it's a pretty good picture actually, is that if I grab a knife, right, like a big chunky knife, and I go up to someone and I stab them in the stomach, right, and then they're bleeding out and they're dying, and then you go and you've got a big chunky knife and you stab them in the heart, right, and then he's bleeding out from both wounds and then he dies of both. Well, that's multiple causes of deaths, and then therefore we are both guilty. So because both of them are sufficiently substantial operating causes of death, or significant causes of death, then we are both guilty. Act of omission. R.V. Hallett. Hallett, I think that was his name, got into a fight with this dude, knocked him out, left him on the beach. Tide came up, the guy drowned and died. So the question, this is probably another one that questions the causation chain, which is the cause of death was actually because of the tide. It wasn't because we beat him up. The court didn't buy it. They said, no, you are still guilty because the tide coming in was reasonably foreseeable. And so because they could foresee it and because they didn't do anything about it, it's an act of omission. Which was still part of causation, which meant that they're guilty of murder. So, the death, which is usually obvious, right? If I've got no pulse, got no brain functions, and I'm not moving at all, and I'm dead, then I'm dead. So it's normally obvious. The exception is not the exception. I guess an interesting scenario. R.V. Dawson. This was a pretty famous case. Apparently there was a podcast about it. I didn't listen to it. But there was a guy and his wife went missing for 30 years. For all we know, she could have been abducted by aliens. We don't know. She could have time traveled. We don't know. And so because there's a question of whether she's dead or not, we can't really conclude whether there is death beyond reasonable doubt. I mean, the courts did, but that can be an instance where the death might be in question. Fun fact, the Human Tissue Act states that legal death, as in death from a legal perspective, is either irreversible cessation of brain activity or irreversible cessation of blood circulation. So that's why, if you go to a hospital and the heart's not beating, you can just turn life support off legally, assuming that it's irreversible. Excuse me. So that's when life ends. We're going to look at when crime starts in a second, when life starts in a second. You'll see it doesn't really marry up. So the death of a human being. So killing an animal is a murder. If I go to your house and kill your dog, yes, it's sad and not very nice of me, but it's not murder. A human being, according to the Crimes Act 1900, Section 20, is alive when it is wholly born and takes its first breath, regardless of blood circulation. So my issue with this here, I'm not trying to get political here, but this doesn't really marry up with the Human Tissue Act, because the Human Tissue Act describes irreversible cessation of brain activity or circulation. So if we have a fetus which has brain activity and circulation, and they are both, they haven't ceased, and then someone punches them in the gut, and then that stops happening, then technically speaking, in a legal way, they are dead before they are alive, which I don't think is very smart. That's just me. That being said, if you were to go up to a pregnant woman, we should probably we'll look at grievous bodily harm right now, actually. So, guilty mind, or a guilty or fault element. So, you are guilty if you intended to kill someone, if you did something with reckless indifference to human life, or with intention to cause grievous bodily harm. So we'll look at grievous bodily harm first. So if I grabbed a lampshade, maybe not a lampshade, maybe something a bit. If I grabbed a hammer, right, and I intended to, bash you until you lost a limb or you lost brain function or whatever, and that was only my intention. I didn't want to kill you. If I still kill you, then it's murder. So that's one thing. Intent to permanently disfigure someone. Intent to give someone a serious medical disease. I think this came around when AIDS was a big thing. So, knowingly giving somebody an STD that could kill them counts as murder. It counts as grievous bodily harm, and if they die because of that, then that's murder. Grievous bodily harm is also if I go up to a pregnant woman and punch her in the guts and then the baby's dead. That counts as grievous bodily harm. Under Section 4 of the Crimes Act. So that's grievous bodily harm. Intention's the obvious one if I'd slit someone's throat and I wanted to do that. Reckless indifference to human life. This is proved in R.V. Crab, where basically a guy was drunk. He got a big truck, this is in the Northern Territory, and he drove it into the bar because some people were peeving him off. Now, he might not have wanted to kill anyone, but considering that there were people in the bar and he knew there were people in the bar, and he knew that hitting them with a car would probably kill them, and he did it anyway, he demonstrated reckless indifference to human life, and he was guilty of murder. That's pretty much it. Next week, I think we're looking at manslaughter. So, thank you for watching.